Hi, welcome to this week's Stalking the Wild Autoharp, and today we're going to talk about a technique in melody playing that I call walking fingers. Basically, it's where you take any melody that you play and you, instead of playing it with one finger, you play it with two fingers, and the motion imitates walking. And you can do this with just about any tune that you play. The idea is that it gets you going faster. When you have to play melody on the Autoharp, the fastest way by far is to do it with your thumb. Thumb lead is just faster than plucking it with your fingers. But when you, and it's louder too, but when you do use your fingers, and you want to use your fingers every so often, you can get going faster if you do an alternating finger pattern. And you can use your index and your middle, or if you prefer, you can use your index and your ring. And I very frequently use my index and my ring because my index and my ring fingers are the same length, or very close to that way, and it gives me a little bit more control than using my index and my middle. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to start by showing you index and middle. And I want you to start with any tune that you play that you find to be very simple to play, that you know well and that you can play without thinking about it much, because here I want you focusing on your finger technique and not so much on, what are the notes. So get to know how to play a melody very well, and then use that melody for the sake of learning on this. And today I'm just going to use Frere Jacques to illustrate this. Okay. Now, normally to play that just with the pluck, we're not going to pinch today. We're just going to pluck. With one finger. Now I want you to take that melody and I want you to play it alternating your index and your middle fingers. And it's okay, you may have noticed that I sometimes do 2 or 3 in a row with just one of my fingers. And that's fine. This is not, there's no rule that says you always have to alternate every other finger all the time. Adapt this loosely based on what you're playing and on what you feel. But when you get going into those eighth notes, the faster notes, it gets easier when you can go dee 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 instead of dee 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 dee. All right. So once again. Now, sometimes your melody happens in straight quarters, but you can bring in your index underneath it instead of right next to it. See, what I mean by that is that some melodies, you'll play the same string 2-3 times, even though you're doing it with two different fingers. But other times you can play a note there and then bring a note in underneath it right after with your index finger. And it's kind of like a doorbell. Instead of going ding, 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 dong, it goes ding, dong. And so when you have quarter notes, play the quarter note with your middle finger, and then do the ding with your middle finger and the dong with your index finger. In this case, Ode to Joy, I'm playing the melody with my middle finger and then bringing in a second note afterwards with my index finger. So the melody is all the dings, and the harmony note that comes in after the fact is all the dongs, and that's played with the index finger. So we go ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, ding, ding. And if you look at my angle on the strings, you'll see here's the melody note with the longer finger and the harmony note coming after on a lower string with the shorter finger. So it's all lined up. Now, along with the middle finger, put your thumb in and pinch. And you're just going to pinch when you do the middle finger. Now that part of the melody, on Ode to Joy at least, is all quarter notes. When you get into the running eighth notes, you're going to have to go to individual plucks with both fingers, and that happens in the middle part that goes... Let me do that again and see if I can do it right this time. Because the melody goes... So you get some eighth notes in the melody too. And this is called pinch pluck, and it's a standard melody technique too, where you play the melody like this, and then you throw in a harmony note about a third lower. And the idea is, when you get into a melody that's going fast, you can go faster instead of going like this all the time. do it this way. And of course, it takes practice to get smooth with it. So that is my walking fingers technique. And if you practice it, you'll find it coming pretty quickly. Just start with a simple melody and just use your two fingers, okay? Now, when I play walking fingers, to make it stronger, I tend to use these two fingers to do it. And this finger either gets lifted slightly out of the way, or I imagine that these two fingers are taped together and they become almost one digit together. And those two fingers are actually striking the same string at the same time. And I'm not sure why I do it that way. It's just, it's a cheat or a lazy way of doing it that I got onto and didn't even realize that I was doing it until I stopped to really pay attention to what I was doing so that I could teach it, and I found myself doing that. So you can adapt that too if you want it. You can have it, but seems to me to make it a little bit louder, especially because I'm using this finger, and we all know that the ring finger is not as strong as the middle finger, and so it kind of strengthens it, makes it louder. But because these two fingers are roughly the same length on my hand, it'll be different on your hand. Some people have this finger is a lot shorter. It just has to do with your own geometry. I like to use these two fingers a lot when I'm doing walking fingers because of the way my hand is constructed, I guess. That's what my hand taught me this. So that's walking fingers. My latest technique to share with you. Thank you for tuning in to these videos. This is an ongoing series. Remember to subscribe to it if you haven't already, because just about every week I come out with a new technique to show you and share with you. And there are a number of people who have been following this and feeding back that it's really helping them to advance. And if you're interested in working with me privately, we can do that online via Skype. I have a number of students now who study with me that way, and I really appreciate their support of my teaching. And I'm glad to help you out too. So remember that. The details are on my website, and the link to that is in the notes to this. Also, I wanted to remind you about my Autoharp album called Autoharp Revealed in Cloud, and that is available through my website as well, halweeks.com. So thanks, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.